Hello, campers, and welcome to episode 7 of Camp Half-BloodCast. We have received some news, or notes, rather, from Mr. D. He says our Athena child has been structuring the episodes a bit too strictly, so he has asked for more chaos.
Well, listen to the next episode to hear me swoon over Luke.
And I wonder whether there is a class system among the demigods.
Where we last left off, Percy learned a great deal about Camp Half-Blood, his new home, only to make some enemies by becoming the supreme lord of the bathroom. Yeah.
Oh my god. The poor boy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, where we now pick up, Percy and Annabeth's tour of the camp continues.
Exactly. So they see a lot of camp facilities. In one of them, satyrs.
The satyrs.
Satyrs. Oh my god.
Satyrs. Satyrs.
Satyrs. Oh my god.
Satyrs.
Misspeaking continues. Are making a statue of a goat man.
But, you know, they continue on, and Percy and Annabeth kind of move on to have this conversation where Percy sees some naiads in the lake, at the bottom of the lake, and they wave at him, and he waves back, and then he gets really overwhelmed.
Yeah, at this point he's like, I want to go home.
And Annabeth is just like, kind of, you are home.
And to be fair, I can't blame him, because even for me, it would be a bit too much, Camp Half-Blood.
I know, but he's 12. This is a dream of a 12-year-old, isn't it?
Is it though?
Yeah, it's my
with
dream.
all the dangers and, you know.
But, well, I mean, I was like...
Okay, I think that, the first time I would be there, I would be like, oh, I can't do this. But maybe I would get used to it. Obviously, once you start your classes and everything,
I know.
you kind of get used to.
Well, Percy is overwhelmed anyway. But I think she's like, this is your home.
Oh yeah, because he doesn't.
Home.
I don't think he realizes at that point that he's actually.
I think he knows, but he's just delusion, denial. He's in denial.
Yeah, but what is he in denial about? Being half-blood, basically.
Exactly. He goes, what, for trouble, for weird kids or freak kids or something.
Yeah.
And Annabeth is just kind of like, no, you know what? And he goes, what? And she goes, kind of.
Percy.
You know. And she says, you know what? And he goes, half god. Half blood. Well, basically a demigod. And he says that he feels this tingling in his chest, that he knows it to be true. He knows that it's the truth, because he feels this tingling that he's sometimes felt when his mom has spoken about his dad.
Yeah.
Anyway, he is kind of I think still overwhelmed by the fact that he cannot leave.
Yeah, because obviously he wants to go home, but then I think Annabeth says something about that being really dangerous, which makes sense, honestly.
I know, but then she's also you know, if you're a son of Aphrodite or Demeter, you probably won't be in trouble. You could probably leave. It would be fine. Yeah. You can have a noble life. And first of all, I just want to say, what? Demeter was one of the original gods, and her kids are not powerful.
Yeah, but also she's the god of nature.
Chill.
You know, it's not a danger.
Are we telling you there's a class system for
yeah.
the children of the gods?
Aphrodite's children are pretty, and Demeter's children are eco-friendly.
Okay, I understand with the minor gods, but the Olympians, I'm oh, okay, you know, you're a child of Aphrodite. I mean, I feel like Aphrodite would be very offended. In any case, Percy then says, oh, who is your dad?
And her dad is a history professor, which makes so much sense with Annabeth.
And she goes, oh, actually, you're she goes, what? So you think that only the male gods get attracted to humans? That is so sexist. And I'm calm down.
Annabeth.
You're 12.
Percy is just that kind of character that just speaks without having any sort of filter whatsoever. And also that's what I like about the book. We're kind of in his brain, so we kind of learn everything about the world without any filter on. He's gonna say, oh, that child is ugly or whatever, just because he thinks that.
Yeah, he finds out, well, that Annabeth's mom is Evina, and
My girl.
cabin 6. Woo! But basically he's like, then what about me?
Yeah.
He's like, who is my parent?
I love how he also like expects Annabeth to know.
But basically she goes undetermined. And he's like, well, when will I be determined? And she's like, well, if your dad sends a sign. And he goes, you mean it doesn't happen? And Annabeth just kind of goes, not always. And she kind of rationalizes it by gods being busy. And, you know, they don't care about us that often.
I mean, again, not to say that I understand the gods, but I do understand the gods. Like, you live for centuries. I mean...
I know, but I'm like, if you have the time to do the deed...
Oh, it doesn't take that long, does it?
They're not even paying child support. Like, listen. Like, listen.
I mean, they're paying with their blessing.
Well, I mean, yeah, because all the demigods are meant to be blessings. That is what they are, essentially. They're a blessing, especially children of Athena.
Blessing or a curse?
Yeah, for the single parent.
But not for the gods.
But basically, Percy was like, my mom knew who my father was. And Annabeth is like...
Bless him.
Annabeth is like, I'm not sure that's the case. But Percy's like, yes, she did.
He's also like, you know, assigns it to that tingly feeling that he has, or like the warm memories.
I know, but that's the thing. He's just like, he loved my mom, so he would have told her. And Annabeth is just like, that's good for you, Percy. Like, sure. But also when when they're discussing this, like, of the gods being too busy, Percy thinks of the Hermes cabin.
Yes, which is just full of other
he says he sees these kids who are like sullen and depressed in there. He remembers them and he thinks like, I have seen them in Yancey school with like their parents were too rich to care.
And then he's like, oh, gods should be better, which is sweet of him to think that.
Well, he's not lying. God should be behaving better.
But we know that they're far worse than that.
On the next, but that's the thing, like, then he finds out that Camp Half-Blood is monster-free.
Yeah, and that's basically what makes it better for him to stay, because otherwise, like, crossing the border and going out is deadly for him, or like for anyone really, except for, like, as we mentioned, so the lesser gods' children.
Lesser gods, be careful what you call Aphrodite.
No, I mean, she's older than other gods.
And also, she's actually one of the most powerful ones, I'd say. So it's a bit interesting. Yeah. You wouldn't want to piss her off.
Okay, let's move on.
Anyway, he finds out some kids, like, following that line, some kids only stay for the summer, and then there are year-rounders who can never leave camp because it would be too dangerous for them to be outside of camp. And she shows her, like, Annabeth basically reveals that she's been here since she was 7.
That's a long time. Longer than many of the other counselors who are way older than her, because they're like college.
Yeah, let's just round back that Annabeth is like, what, 12, and she's a counselor. Yeah. I'm like, what does she say to people? Like, she's 12, and then she's arguing with 18-year-olds. Like, I'm just... Basically, because she's a year-rounder, she pulls out a necklace, and it has, like, these clay beads, and she says that... each bead kind of represents a year they've survived, which is very ominous.
You said it right, finally.
Ominous. It's very ominous when you say, I have a bead for every year I survived. But like also Percy's like, why have you been here for this long? She goes, it's none of your business.
Yeah, they don't know each other that long. Then we need to go to the sick room, and that she mentioned the deadline, and Percy kind of remembers it.
Episode 4, when Percy has just arrived to camp and he is in and out of sleep, he hears Annabeth ask him what he knows.
Yeah, she mentions a deadline, but Percy kind of reveals that he doesn't know that much. And she's a bit disappointed, obviously.
I mean, he does say that, like, I remember, like, Chiron, and, like, she says, you do know something? Because he mentions the sick room, and he's like, well, I overheard Grover and Chiron speak about a deadline.
The solstice deadline.
And she basically admits that for the winter solstice, her and some of the other year-rounders, so Luke, Clarice, and a few of the others, had gone to Mount Olympus on a camp trip, because the gods have their council on the winter solstice. And basically, he's like, you went to Mount Olympus? And she's like, yeah, it's in New York. And he's like, where? And she's like, in the Empire State Building.
Obviously.
It's like, are you a New Yorker or what? And I'm like, okay, Annabeth, calm
600th floor.
I know. So she mentions that they're gone, and when they leave, the weather gets bad. Like something bad has happened.
And we've heard about it before, about the bad weather thing.
So she has figured out by listening to the sources, meaning Chiron and the satyrs, that something has been stolen. But she was kind of hoping that her and Percy, could work together to find out. But she's kind of severely disappointed that Percy knows nothing.
She was also mentions Athena gets along with everyone except for maybe Ares and Poseidon.
She's like, and then she just like mutters to herself, just like, I'm not too young for a quest. I'm not too young. Because that is the condition to leave camp. It is that you need to have a quest.
Yeah.
And that a band.
Annabeth, you are too young. Come on.
You are too young. So when we, like, eventually, they leave each other while she is muttering to herself. True queens. Only geniuses speak to themselves. And we arrive at cabin 11.
Yeah. And Percy has, like, a one-on-one conversation with Luke.
But as he walks in, he kind of notes that all the Hermes children actually look kind of similar. They have similar traits, like upturned eyebrows, mischievous smiles. And he says that, like, a teacher would always pick that kind of child as a troublemaker. Yep. And I would like to note, which is quite funny, is that, like, Hermes is also Mercury, which the planet Mercury, obviously, like, that rules, like, Gemini and Virgo. And I was Googling this because I felt like I had read something before about this, because it often says that Gemini is, like, if you're, like, a Gemini rising, if you believe this kind of stuff, a Gemini rising, you will have, like, similar traits, and the trait is mischievous looking. And I was like, this is so in-depth, and I just want to know if that was intentional. Like, if this is something that Rick has kind of researched.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, like, with the amount of knowledge he has on the mythology and on, like, anything ancient, because I think he was a teacher as well.
Yeah, I assume. But, like, it was just fun because I'd read it, I think, once. I mean, my sun sign is a Gemini, so I think I had, like, looked at it at one point.
But is it rising?
No, mine is a Leo rising.
Oh, okay. So you don't have it. So no mischievous smiles for
No,
you.
just lots of hair. Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
Not like me.
Basically, Luke, then arrives, and Percy notes that Luke also has this mischievous grin, and that the scar on his...
Sorry.
She's just in love. That the scar he has on his cheek doesn't ruin his smile.
Exactly.
Like, he has the same trait.
It doesn't ruin a pretty face.
You really want to talk about the Luke conversation?
I mean, yes, I do. I actually have a quote. Because Luke is perfect. I mean, I would literally read anything he said to Percy.
We returned to the story of where I had always wanted more Apollo content, and I got it in a 5-book series, and she will be mourning.
You're gonna make me cry.
Sorry.
You're gonna make me cry. But yeah, like, basically, I love this moment when he's like, I was so grateful for that, because an older guy like him, even if he was a counselor, should have stayed clear of an uncle middle schooler like me. But Luke had welcomed me into the cabin. He'd even stolen me some toiletries, which was the nicest thing anybody has done for me all day. Which is so sad.
It is
well.
super sad. I would like to, like, also, like, circle back to, like, when they do talk, he's like, I don't belong here. And Luke is like, that's how we all felt when we came. And it doesn't get easier when you start to believe in the gods. Yeah. And Percy is kind of surprised by that, bitterness that Luke is in his voice, because he seems quite easygoing as a person. So Percy is kind of like, there's like, he's so like, where did that come from? And he kind of goes, so Hermes, huh? Like the winged sandals.
Because basically, I think Luke says that he's a messenger, but like he takes care of messenger, medicine, travelers, merchants, thieves, and anybody who uses the road.
Literally anyone. Hermes does not discriminate, and in that turn, Percy is kind of like, I don't think he was meant to call it, like he meant to call me a nobody.
Because basically Luke tries to like allude to the fact that everyone gets put in the cabin, and to be fair, I understand that you wouldn't want like your cabin to be kind of like
overfull,
a corridor for people to just.
And also remember, everyone's like sleeping on the floor. There's no beds left. Again, like, is there a class system? So the people that have been claimed, I'm assuming, are getting a bed, and then everyone else has to sleep on
and probably the older you get, the more space you have. The more years you survive, basically.
Basically, Percy then kind of asks, well, Percy's like, again, really hyper-focused on all the, like, who his parent is, because he doesn't actually really want to stay on the floor. Let's all be honest. Like, no one wants to. And Luke is like, you know what? Who cares? Like, the gods, who cares? Who cares about your parent? Like, the campers. They're the real family you'll ever, like, the like, most of the people, he's like, most of the people at the camp are good people. Yeah. These are your family. Like,
yeah, exactly.
We're all kind of related.
They are, that makes sense.
Which actually kind of like, how are they having relationships?
Let's not get into that yet.
I think,
it will get interesting at some point. Let's move on.
But yeah, basically Percy is like, what does Clarice and Annabeth, who has mentioned it twice, by the way, mean about big free material?
Yeah, we've heard that before. And I think Luke kind of... does he explain to him?
No, he kind of dismisses it. He says, don't listen to them. Annabeth is just like really set on getting a quest.
Yeah, she basically wants to believe that every new arrival is the person that she's been waiting for.
Basically because she has been begging Chiron for a quest this whole time. Luke is... Basically, Annabeth has actually told Percy that he needs to go see an oracle. And Luke is like, I hate prophecies. And then Percy is kind of like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
And that's when his voice so big.
And he's like, well, I failed my quest at the Garden of Euripides.
I'm not going to try saying that.
Producer Mel, I don't know how to say it.
It's written below if you're watching on YouTube. It's
Euripides. That's what I'm going to say. Actually, I think that is wrong. Hesperides.
That's two different things. It's written down here.
Basically, the Garden of Hesperides. However, I'm like the sonnet. Basically, Luke says that he failed a quest.
That's another sweet moment because he's like, I kind of ruined everything for everyone in the camp. Because of me, they're not allowing people to go on quests.
So basically, he's like, Annabeth has been obsessed ever since. But Chiron, in order to get her to stop, has been like, I know your fate. You're to wait for something special. Someone special. But I'm also like... Why does Annabeth, like, ominous? Again, ominous. Like, I'm obsessed with this word. Ever since I learned how to pronounce it, I will put it into every conversation. Ominous. Anyway, red yellow lore. Basically, yeah, I don't understand why she doesn't hyper-focus on the fact that he knows her fate. Like, does she not want to know? Like, does she just only care about the quest?
She's wise. She doesn't want to know because it's not good to know your own fate.
That's very true. But yeah, basically, he's like, Annabeth just waits around for that. Like, every single person that comes in, she drills them to try and work out if it's them.
Yeah.
And then their conversation is interrupted because it's dinner time.
Yeah. And I love how Luke immediately switches from like being a friendly, big brother to, okay, cabin 11, and lines them up literally.
Wait, what is this like?
Hold on.
11 fall in.
Yeah, lines them up and everyone's just, everyone listens to him.
Yeah, I know.
He commands the room.
I'm like, if someone shouted 11 fall in, I'd be like,
Exactly.
Percy notes that he has no it's a seniority. Is that how they line up? And he's like, he is a nobody, so he's on the back.
Go on.
No, they make their way to the dining pavilion.
Exactly.
And Percy notes that there is nymphs, dryads, satyrs. Everyone is arriving out of the trees. Satyrs. We're getting hand signals from producer Mel.
Yes.
That's how we know we're getting it on. Yeah, they're all making their way to the dining tables.
And then obviously when they sit at a table, they sit at a table that belongs to their cabin. So Percy's like, half of my butt cheek is hanging off of it because there's just so many people sitting at a table.
And also, and then he like notes, Mr. D is sitting at a table with all the satyrs. All the satyrs.
Ominous
oh my
satyrs.
god, I can't
Ominous
say it
satyrs.
now. Ominous satyrs. And the dryads and two plump-looking kids, which I think is quite rude. Like, I think he really needs to set his...
We're in his brain, remember?
I know, but he needs to, like... Anyway, then there's the Clarice, who he, like, notes has gotten over being drenched by toilet water.
To be frank, I mean, there's probably worse things that happened to Clarice.
Yeah. No, there are worse things to come for Clarice.
Da.
See you in 5 books. But he notes Annabeth is sitting at another one with a bunch of serious looking kids, all blonde with blue eyes. He actually notes that did we say never mind. No, it's not important. That's the next chapter. Don't worry.
Oh, wow. Okay. Getting ahead of yourself today.
I know. It's because I wanted to ask a question, but I will ask in the next chapter. I will remember it and ask. Yeah. So basically, I was like, what about Apollo's cabin? You know what I mean? You understand what my question is? I just was hit by... I feel bad for you guys, but we'll see you next time. Basically, Chiron asks for them to cheers to the gods.
And Percy's like, oh, why is there nothing in my cup?
Like, hello. And then
Poor soul.
Luke is like, you just have to imagine it, non-alcoholic, obviously. And
what would your drink be?
I don't know. Good question. My drink would be... I'm trying to... I don't know. I love there's so many drinks I love.
I would do kombucha.
Iced coffee.
Iced coffee with oat milk.
And vanilla.
We'll talk about your choice of coffee
but
another
this is
time.
the thing, I don't want a milky drink for dinner, to be honest. But I almost said bubble tea, but I was like, I think I'd get tired in the end.
Yeah. I would say kombucha or tonic.
Kombucha is a good one. But basically he says, a cherry Coke?
Yeah.
And then he turns it blue.
Yeah.
And then instead of cheersing to the gods, he cheerses to his mom.
Yeah.
And
who he does keep having those thoughts about her being in the underworld.
Yeah, he's like, soon. He's like inside,
Yeah.
he's like, soon. He will work it out. She's not gone.
Yeah.
And it's just like, every time Sally's named, I'm like, oh, this poor child.
Oh no. Every time Sally gets mentioned, I think of you.
I know.
And I'm like, Leah's crying.
And my pink labels are all Sally, just so you know. So basically, then the food comes. They get called to a fire, and Percy's like, is there dessert?
Bless him.
Is there a dessert table? And then Luke is like, no, we have to do burnt offerings, which basically is we scrape the best part of our plate.
Yeah.
We scrape it into the fire because the gods like to smell it.
Because if you wouldn't pick the best part, they would be offended as well. And we know that because that's
remember when we talked about the Minotaur?
Oh yeah, exactly.
They didn't sacrifice the best cow, and things got weird. Really weird. But basically, they're scraping their best bit. Luke says Hermes and gives him all these really good grapes. Percy, however, just finds himself begging to be claimed. He's like, just pick me. He's like,
Dad.
Pick me, Dad.
Claim me.
He's a bit desperate because he doesn't have a certain parent, and he's just trying to work out where he belongs in this place.
Yeah.
So then, after that happens, Mr. D kind of announces to the whole dining pavilion that they have a new camper called Peter Johnson.
And what I love about his character, is that he's not doing it on purpose. He doesn't want to be mean. He's just like, he doesn't care. He couldn't care enough to remember his the new campus name.
I mean, I would argue he also does it intentionally.
See, that's what I think. It's not the case.
I think Mr. D. No, but the thing is, I think Mr. D doesn't care. But unfortunately, he is a god, so he will know. And I just think he makes an effort to do it, like to not make the campers feel like they're important enough.
He might make effort to not care, to erase that from his
That's
brain.
why I just feel like he will make an effort to make them feel insignificant to him.
Maybe.
Because he's being punished. Remember, he is there as a punishment.
I know.
But yeah, so he announces that on capture the flag is in the coming days. And Percy's doesn't know what that is. And he's like, okay, whatever. But again, Mr. D kind of dismisses everyone and goes to your stupid sing-along, which is led by the Apollo captain, obviously. And Percy just kind of notes that he all of a sudden is actually starting to feel home as he's sitting with all the campers, they're singing, eating marshmallows.
Imagine campfire, everyone singing. Yeah, I would probably feel at home.
Exactly. Yeah. He's just kind of there with his minotaur horn in hand. It's really his comfort blanket. It's a bit concerning.
Imagine.
Just walking around with his horn everywhere. He eventually crashes into cabin 11 on the floor in his little space on the floor. And he says, if only I'd known how little time I would have to enjoy my new home.
Ominous, ominous, ominous.
Ominous, ominous, ominous. And that is where the chapter wraps up. Should we discuss some of our characters?
I think we should.
My first note is when Luke and Percy have a conversation. As Percy and Luke are talking, Luke pulls out a knife to scrape mud off his sandal. Which I don't know,
completely normal thing to do.
Piece of footwear to me. I don't it's just sandals. I don't know why.
I love them.
I don't know. It makes me giggle. I don't know why. But he reaches out to scrape mud up. Percy is for 1 second, I think he's going to gut me. And I have a lot of questions. Where does that come from? Why do you think he's going to gut you?
I mean, I think he's been through quite a bit of stress.
Yeah, but you're just having a big bro conversation and then you think he's going to gut you?
Maybe it's that scar,
I would say, I feel like I've forgotten how much I love Luke. I was telling you that I was actually, he's so great. He's such a big brother
he's
type.
Mine.
Mine. Yeah, he is yours. Don't worry.
Thank you.
I would also like to, do you have anything on Luke you want to share? Do you have anything on Luke?
Do you really need to ask?
No.
No, I do. No, to be fair, I couldn't contain myself and I mentioned most of it already. I love how he switches from being commanding to being a big old brother and kind of trying to make everyone comfortable. But
Good
then
guy.
there's this bitterness to him.
I know he is bitter, but then again, who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be? Yeah. If your cabin was just kind of a motel on a highway, I think we all would maybe feel, and maybe also if as Percy. Oh, I just spat. If anyone saw that.
Let me wipe it.
Whoopsie! I was really eager to say, if you were a camp counselor and you saw a bunch of kids being sad and depressed and you're waiting for a call that never comes, I think
And even Luke has seen his dad once, even though he's been claimed, and he mentions that as well.
Yeah, I want to know how that went.
Well, Percy wanted to know, but they're all super mysterious about their parents.
I love both Annabeth and Luke are none your business, bro.
Yeah.
I would say also one thing I want to touch on with Percy is when they get called for dinner, it is a conch shell that signals it, and he doesn't know how he knows because he's never heard that in his life, but he just knows.
How does he know?
I wonder how that knows. I also have written notes. Sweet angel child. His whole confusion about being a demigod despite having met Mr. D. Also and he's just begging to be claimed. There's so many notes on Percy of just my mom knew who my dad was because he loved her. He's never met the man in his life, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, God's Percy.
I can't blame Annabeth for feeling like...
Get over yourself, Percy.
Oh, one thing I did forget to tell you. I was meant to remember it because it is one of the only mentions of my favorite character I get in the next 2 books, is that when Percy goes to dinner, he notices one of the cabins, which looks normal in like daylight. As the sun is going down, it starts to like shimmer in a silver light, and he doesn't understand what it means. I will tell you, it's because it's Artemis's cabin, and she's a goddess of the moon. Which is in contrast to Apollo's cabin, which is a gold one that Percy can't even look at when the sun is out. And again, leads to a lot of questions about the Apollo cabin. Are they all just wearing sunglasses? I think I've raised this question before. Anyway, I will say my only note on like Annabeth is like excusing the gods and how like Luke resents them, and they're like 2 halves of like her going, yeah, and Luke is like, about it. And then also that she is a 12-year-old child talking about sexism. And I'm like, you need to calm down, Queen. I'm so, like, I know you're right, but you are 12.
And she's been in the camp since she was 7, so...
Yeah, well...
Is there a lot of sexism going on at the camp?
I don't know.
Maybe
there is. God-wise. Maybe.
Fair.
Maybe. Like, look at the myths. All the women are getting...
Yeah.
If she's right, 100% right. Queen, you're tall. Anyway, do you have any, like, moments besides this that you kind of want to highlight? I think I chose the wrong order, so let's start with the myths someone mentioned.
Also, if you have your character highlight, please do let us know. On our Instagram, Camp Half-BloodCast, or in the comments.
Or YouTube, wherever you want to add it to us. We, unlike the gods, will read your message.
We listen. We might respond as well.
So, Zeus, we heard a lot about, like, some oracle.
Exactly. So oracle is Latin from oraculum, which means, and from orar, which means to pray or to speak, basically. And this is like the divine communication delivered in response to someone's request. And it's a branch of divination, which is just basically seeking knowledge about the future by supernatural means. And unlike all the other divinations, it's connected to a specific place or a person. So the most famous ancient oracle was that of Apollo of Delphi, which I believe it's like in Percy Jackson we mostly refer to that one.
Yes, for now anyway.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be talking it's coming up very soon.
Exactly. Like we're gonna discuss it in more details later.
Spoiler alert. And
we also mentioned naiads and nymphs. So basically they're inferior female divinities, and they're associated with everything fertile or growing. And I mean nymphs, because naiads are nymphs of flowing water.
And then you have a goat man. Yeah,
so Goatman is Pan. He's missing at the moment.
The way we're meeting him in this chapter is the satyrs.
Oh yeah, satyrs are basically carving a Goatman statue. And I think we'll learn more about him later.
So we're also introduced to a few gods, or well, closer. We're getting more about them because we have Athena and we have Hermes. Let's start with Athena because Annabeth mentions her first. And
my mom.
It is her mom.
Yeah. Cheers to that.
So Athena is one of the 12 Olympians. She's the goddess of wisdom, craft, and warfare. She was also Zeus's favorite child. Go figures.
I always think you say Zeus.
That you mean you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
like my favorite child. She's my mother.
So there's like 2 main myths of how she came to be. One of them is that she's born from a thought in Zeus's head, and he had a headache that was so bad, and she just kind of exploded from it.
I like that one.
It's good because it makes Zeus look good for once. Because the second myth is that he either raped or married Metis, I don't know how to say her name. She was like considered the wisest among gods and mortals. And basically, Zeus, like, she fell pregnant. So I still think it's probably the worst of the 2 that happened.
Yeah.
And he gets anxious that a child of someone like that could overthrow him. So he eats her. He swallows her whole, and she is still pregnant. So eventually Athena just bursts from his forehead.
I thought basically that you mean that he swallows Athena, and I was about to say like it's like Cronus, but no.
No, he swallows the mom while she's pregnant, and then she just kind of bursts from his forehead. And she's a patron goddess of Athens, and she aided heroes like Jason, Heracles, and Perseus. And then we like kind of swirl onto Hermes, who was another one of the 12 Olympians. He was the herald of the gods, which means he was their speaker, or like he was the one that was like announcing things, basically. He was a god of human heralds, travelers, thieves, merchants, orators, shepherds. He was a god of a lot of things. He had winged shoes. He had little winged shoes. If you saw the Disney classic, I'm going to highlight that again. He's a little guy with his sunglasses. And anyway, he has these shoes. I mean, he doesn't have these shoes because of this, but he was the only god who was allowed to travel in and out of the underworld, because he would bring the souls down after you died. And who wouldn't love to be brought to the underworld by a man with winged shoes? I would.
I'd rather.
So the way Hermes came to be, he was born to a nymph. Basically, I think she is one of Atlas' daughters, Maia, who was raped by Zeus. Surprise, surprise. Actually, it doesn't actually say if she was raped, but Zeus is her father. Surprise, surprise. She literally gave birth, went to sleep, like any mother would. And in that time, Hermes got up to a lot of things. First off, he invented the lyre. Then he stole Apollo's sacred cows by herding them away. And then he also avoided getting killed by Apollo, because Apollo was rightly so upset that his cows went missing. So he tracks down a baby. And he's like, I'm going to kill you. And then Hermes is like, here's a lyre. You are the god of music, right? And Apollo is like, you are so right, bestie, I am. So he forgives him and makes him the god of shepherding. And actually, for once, there's peace. No anger. No bad things. Who would have thought? Incredible scenes. Incredible scenes. And then we got the Garden of Hesperides. I decided this is how it's pronounced. Which was, Hesperides were basically nymphs of the West. And Hera got this orchard, which is a garden, that she basically, the orchard, like these trees that are in her orchard are from a branch that Gaia gave her when her and Zeus got married, when she accepted Zeus's hands in marriage. And these trees grows golden apples, which gives you immortality, like divinity. You become a god. Which I kind of like funny note is that in Norse mythology you have Idun, who has like a similar thing. So I don't know like how that
it's all connected.
Interlaps. Anyway, Hera has trust issues. Surprise, surprise. She doesn't trust the Hesperides to actually look after her orchard. So besides them tending to her garden, she also places a 100-headed dragon called Ladon, who also protects her apples. Eris, the goddess of discord, stole an apple at some point, and that's what was one of the things that led into the Trojan War. And also, many will maybe know that Heracles, one of his many trials, was also stealing an apple from this place. And that's actually the myths that we were introduced to today.
Yeah, that's quite a bit actually.
Yeah, that was actually 6 points.
But yeah, I mean, I do want to mention my favorite moment since you asked me already.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I already asked.
So my favorite moment is like when Annabeth mentions that, you know, monsters can't really cross the barrier. Only if they can do that if they're summoned by someone from within. And people sometimes do that for practical jokes. And Percy's like, practical jokes.
It's like jokes. My favorite point, I would have said it if I had remembered while we were going through this, but it's after the toilet, literally the beginning of the chapter. Percy like goes, I'm sorry, Annabeth, it was my fault that the water drenched you. And she's kind of just looking at him like, mm-hmm. And he goes, it was his fault. He had become one with the plumbing. And it's so funny. Percy is so funny. That is, I think, my favorite part. That and like Luke probably being a big brother type. Or like him just feeling at home. Mm-hmm. That's it. Do you have a moment that you think are defining this chapter?
I do. And it's a quote. Oh, look at me.
Oh my God, she changed.
So, but it basically is Percy whispering, whoever you are, please tell me, before he throws his food in the fire.
Okay.
I think it defines the chapter. Because he's like constantly like, oh, who's my father? Who's my father?
Well, mine is God should behave better.
It interconnects, honestly.
It does. I think it's a theme that will continue over many books. And that was everything for today.
Did you hear that sound?
Yeah. Dionysus needs to double check that our work is actually efficient, and he hasn't been pleased. So we best go deliver this to him before we get in trouble.
Yep, see you guys.
I don't want toilet duties.
No, me neither. Okay. Shall we go?
Yes. For the gods.
Thank you, guys. Bye.